Hello, and welcome back to another Candid Crucial Community Conversations. And tonight we're just simply debriefing on all that we have discussed in previous broadcasts, as well as I just wanted to share some insight after listening to a conversation on over the weekend from another young lady who also has who also facilitates a conversation on education system and school. I thought it was very unique. I thought it was very interesting in order just to hear some of the things that was discussed on her broadcast. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to tune in, invite folks to join us tonight. As you know, we are live every single Monday at 7:30 for our Candid Crucial Community Conversations. And what we do on this platform is we simply discuss some of the social injustice. We have candid, crucial conversations about what's going on in our various communities. Hey to my niece or my nephew watching on YouTube from there on my sister's page. How are you tonight? What we do is we discuss some of those candid different things happening in the various communities. So I'm actually going to be looking to debrief with some of our future special guest speakers, as well as to host another platform or another discussion with some elected officials in order to, again, to educate our community on how we can become engaged, how we can become involved in order to bring unity back into our local communities. So as I said, I'm giving you all a few seconds to tune in, to also share out the broadcast, invite someone to join us tonight in on this discussion. I got to tell you, it just does my heart joy. It does my heart good to see, individuals that are intentional about moving their community forward in order to really see change take place in their community. Not being a part of the problem, but being a solutionist and being able to engage in the process of change and really have an understanding as to how they can contribute to the process of bringing unity in their local communities. One of the things I say all the time is we have to know what lane we were called to, what lane we were purposed for, so that when we are doing our work and we are actually trailblazing in our own lanes, that it's producing substance to change and bring about a great togetherness in our community. So I just wanted to say that. And also, again, I cannot thank the special guest speakers who've already been featured on the platform that has shared their insight, their expertise with us as it relates to the various topics, specifically to build the bridge in order to see unity back in our communities. As I said last week, we are just excited to keep these conversations going, to host a business panel, to host a parent panel, to also host an educators panel. But I just thought that I would debrief from some discussion that I heard. A young lady named Swirl Girl, she actually facilitated, she has what she calls a teacher's talk. And I thought that the talk that she had on Saturday was really good. And I got to tell you that when we start having these conversations, hello to my sister Lindsay, who's watching us tonight. When we start having these conversations, it's easy for us to lose track of time because they become so good. Like the information, the insight, the perspective, for me, it becomes good. So a conversation could go anywhere from 30 minutes easy and turn into a conversation that happens over 2 hours. So I just thought that the conversation and the discussion that she had on Saturday was very good. She had educators from all over the nation who were represented on the line. I love the way that she actually put together her platform because, as you all know, I'm an advocate by nature. And a lot of times when you're working in different fields, we hear and we understand there's a lot of policy that restricts you from being able to speak what it is that you need to say or how you feel about different things as it relates to not just within the business, but within the nation, within the world. So a lot of times you have an opinion, you have expertise that you can offer to be a part of that solution process, but at the same time, you don't want to lose your job. So what she did was she actually hosted her conversation on Zoom, and she named every person, every educator, gave them a letter. So we had teacher A, teacher A, I want to say through J. So there was a number of teachers that were represented on this call, and they came from a variation of backgrounds. They had taught on different grade levels. So tonight we're actually just debriefing from that discussion. There was a lot of things that was said in that conversation, and I really just want your feedback. I want your input. I want to know your thoughts as it relates to some of the things that I took away from that conversation that I didn't think about, right? So as you all know, I am Shay Speaks, your life and career advocate. And what I do is simply provide the space, and I am that person that's saying, yes, you can do whatever it is that you desire to do, but you got to use wisdom and you have to have strategy in order to really execute and to see yourself walking into the plan or the purpose that God has called you to. So her name, she goes by Swirl Girl, but her name is Shanae McDaniel McCabry. If you would just go follow her profile, go check out the replay from that discussion. It was 2 hours long, but I promise you the 2 hours was very insightful. It was very engaging. The panelists that she had, the educators that she had on the line, they were very transparent about in their responses to the various questions. So some of the things that came up in discussion, and I say often that we have to keep in mind, again, when we start making complaints or when we start, considering all that's going on in the nation, when we start seeing things, even in our local community, that affects the way that we live, we sometimes are quick to complain. We are quick to pass judgment on why it shouldn't be this way and what it should be, but we don't consider the process of policy that different things have to go through in order to be implemented, in order for changes to be made. So one of the things that I've always tried to bring our community back to see is that in anything that you are looking to provoke change, or you're trying to engage in the process of making things better, you have to know that there comes a process with the progression. And a lot of times the process to see progression is not as quick, it's not as instantaneous as many people desire to see. So what typically happens is you find that in the process, many people start to scale back. They start to pull back from even trying to lend a hand of help in order to see things change, in order to see things turn around for the better, because the process is not producing results as quickly as they desire. So tonight, I just want to actually, make sure that we have an understanding that nothing that we want to see or no change that we want to see happens overnight, but really understanding that there is a process. And just because you speak to an elected official, just because you speak to someone who has some type of governance authority, it does not mean that that person can go and change things instantaneously like you desire. So that's number one. I want you to keep in mind that process, it takes time. Process takes, and it goes through a variation of channels and changes before it's actually implemented. So that's number one. The second thing, in conversation, the panel shared, there was a question that came in about a single parent trying to facilitate instructions and really not having the background in order to do so. Well, what about the parent who wants to see their child succeed and they want the best things, or they want to make sure that their child has access to resources, but educators aren't considering some of what we consider, or what in the field of psychology we call Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So a lot of times when we're having discussions, and I'm speaking now to community, I'm speaking out of passion from my heart, that we have to keep in mind that no one person is hired to do a job or elected to do a job, and they don't consider even some of the factors that may not be spoken publicly about, that they're not considering those things. Because you have, and as I shared in the comment section while they were having the discussion, I have a lot of educator friends who spend more time addressing some of the basic needs of their students than they did actually teaching them. And what I mean by that is, sometimes you have students, or you have children that go to school and they only get the meal that they receive during the school day at school. That's the only meal that they receive. And one of the questions that came in was, what about those children whose the only meal that they were eating was what they were eating at school? And, not to be insensitive to that child, but as I stated before, COVID-19 and this pandemic and all of the world changes that we're seeing really has taken and putting the perspective back on education as it really was initially designed to do. Educating our students, educating our children the intention was never to be the sole job for the teacher. Educating our children, it starts at home. It starts with, the parents or the guardian of the person that's raising that child. So we had the teachers, sharing their insight. But, when they were sharing their insight, one of the things that I began to think about is, this is good. This is really good. So we actually had our mental health discussion, the mental health edition on Candid Crucial Community Conversations. And when we start thinking about the disparities of the mental health community, we have to consider those individuals that are not receiving adequate meals. They're not receiving adequate resources they're not getting the adequate resources that they need in order to be successful, not just academically, but also mentally. So, this is a host of things that we have to consider. But one of the things that came to mind when having the discussion was the education system. Our local board of educations can produce laptops, and they can produce tablets, give a parent access to have internet access by giving them a jetpack or whatever the case may be. However, the education system cannot change the fact that that parent or that household may be without electricity. Yes, that's a real thing. So when we start talking about everything that the education system should be doing, we also have to consider what we as a community, the responsibility that we have to help and uphold one another during a time such as this. I have to be honest. One thing that I have told my children's teachers, everything that my children's teachers, especially the youngest two, everything that they have told my husband and I in parent-teacher conference, I was able to see all of those things when we had to give our children the packets. And as a parent still working and actually teleworking, I'm trying to work full time and still do school full time as well. So I have to figure out a schedule that's going to work, not only just for my kids, but also for me. So I'm going to actually share that schedule with you all in the coming weeks, so that you also, too, for parents that may be struggling, you will have that information. One of the things that I found after the first week of schools shutting down back in March, after that first week, I had to instantaneously go with some type of game plan. At that time, there was still not any packets at home. I had to go with some game plan. So my game plan was get my children up, have them to get up as if they were getting up for a normal day of school. They had to report to the table by a certain time. I called the roster for attendance. Even though they're my children, I called the roster for attendance. I separated. I am mommy versus I am Mrs. Shea, the principal, and Mrs. Cisco, the teacher. Hello? So it worked for me, so that I had to keep my children in routine for school, so that they understood that this is just isn't no break. This isn't, a free for all. No, you still have to show up. There's still learning and instruction that has to happen, even when we don't have, anything from the local Board of Education. So I just thought that was a good point to bring up the fact that the education system can provide internet, they can provide iPads, laptops, all of these different things, but we still have to consider the family that don't have electricity. How will we pull together as a community to help our neighbor who may can't pay their electric bill and they are going up for a disconnection? How will we be intentional as a community to help them through their transition? Because it's not hard on one person, it's hard on everyone. How can we be of a support to teachers and administrators, even in a time where they're transitioning, trying to figure this thing out as we go along? I got to be honest, when I listened to that discussion on Saturday, it gave me a lot of different perspective. I also commented, when we start talking about in-person classes, when we start talking about what's in the best interest for the learning style for a child, yes, some children learn better in person. However, we also have to consider the safety precautions that we must take in order to ensure that that child is learning at their level that they can actually comprehend. So with that being said, we heard discussions about some schools doing a hybrid schedule where on certain weeks, students will go to school, other weeks, other students will go to school, or they would go to school some weeks and then they would actually do online instruction other weeks. But when we actually consider even that model, we have to consider, is temperature checks the best practice for individuals that may be asymptomatic? If a person doesn't have a temperature or they don't display any symptoms of COVID-19, can we really say that taking temperatures, wiping down things, that those, of course, that's safety precautions that we should take. However, we can be sure that we are still maintaining the safety of not only our children, educators, and administrators by doing this, because we have individuals that could be very well be asymptomatic. Also consider that just because a person has a fever or because they cough, it does not automatically mean they have COVID-19. So it's a lot of different things that, we are hearing in discussion. A lot of parents, they have their fears about, online instruction. They have their fears about in-person instruction. So my encouragement tonight is just to be very mindful that the process of progression, it takes time. And that although we all have our own personal opinions about what could be done in order to satisfy community and to ensure the safety of not only the students, but our educators, parents, community, not just the community, to ensure the safety of one person, but of all people, we have to be mindful that this isn't just a cookie cutter solution. There's not one cookie cutter solution that's going to satisfy the entire nation, because this is an issue that not one state, but all of the states are up against. And it gets really hard when the governor of the various states puts the ball into the court of every individual county to do something or come up with their own plan. So you could have two cities that are literally 20 minutes away from one another, and they're facilitating instruction a different way. And then you still have community upset with where a community is saying, oh, well, over in Cambridge, they are strictly online for the first quarter, where here in Easton, I'm not in support of sending my children to school, even if it's on an on and off schedule, week 1 A-B schedule. I'm not in support of that. So just be mindful that a lot of the decision making, it doesn't just happen overnight, number one. And then number two, know that it goes down through a chain of command. And that's exactly why I have been trying to make sure that we bring at least once or twice a month some of our elected officials on to speak to the process of how laws and policies are implemented, so that you have an idea of how long it could take for change to really happen, or what the process would be if you call up your elected official and you express to your elected official that I don't like this, we need to change this. And really understanding that you might call that elected official up, and that elected official is passionate about serving their community, but they're not in it. They're not the in it be it all. So when you have 5 people on a board and an item is presented before that board, you have to have at least 3 people in support of whatever that issue is in order for change to start happening with that particular policy. It's not good enough. It's not enough just to say, oh, well, Shay don't believe that we should do it like this. Shay believes that we should have flexibility with teachers, and we should give teachers, and this is my thoughts for real, we should give teachers the opportunity to either pick to facilitate instruction in the morning or in the evening. And ultimately, I don't know the ins and outs of what the teachers union, what's in their contracts. So I would actually have to call up Katie Holbrook and say, hey, Katie, I was just thinking, maybe you could pass this on. Maybe having given teachers more flexibility, which also speaks to community, because you have individuals that are working, teleworking, and or they are still going into physical offices and they're still working because their nature of work is considered essential. So they're going to work every single day, and then they still need to ensure that their child is receiving the instruction to make sure that they are getting all that they need to academically be successful. However, community, we have to get back to really understanding some of the foundation of community and the foundation of just being able to be helpful, to show compassion to one another during a time such as this. And what I mean by that is, yes, you may not have the space or the capacity to tell your neighbor's kids to come over your home or over to your house to help your neighbor with instruction, or to help your neighbor really understand how to get in the swing of things. But just be compassionate. Be compassionate when you are expressing your viewpoints, because you never know what a person's situation may be. Yes, I may not have the educational background to facilitate instruction to my kids. However, I've learned the power of networks and really being able to not be prideful and to say, I don't understand this, I need help. Or doing just what most children do, Google it. Seriously, like Googling it, or going to YouTube to try to find some help. And not every single thing that you find in the media will be the right thing. However, it's just being able to take the extra measure to really find out what I need to be doing to ensure not just my child's success, but to ensure that my community is successful. Because ultimately, we're having a discussion about how schools should be facilitated or how instruction should be facilitated. But ultimately, our youth, the young people that are in school now, that's coming through and having to go through the changes in our education system. They are our future. They are our future nurses. They are our future lawyers. They are our future doctors. They are our future bank tellers. So we got to get back to really investing in them. And it may not be me investing $500 into a child to see them be successful, but it may be me investing some time, taking some time just to hear them. Well, what is it that you want to do? And how can you be of a support? How can you be of a help to ensure that they are actually getting the resources and tapping into the connections in order to get what they need to be successful? So y'all know, I don't just speak on one side of the coin. I speak from all sides of the coin. And with that being said, also to our administrators, to those that are in administrative authority that have the means in order to be an advocate not just for your staff or teachers, but also for parents and students. Just be mindful. Hear the community. Hear them when they pour out. I'm actually going to be doing a community panel where I'm going to have parents that want to come on and actually share their insight as it relates to social injustice, as it relates to what's happening in our education system, and their thoughts about, engaging in a community. I will be honest, prior to me actually really understanding the value of my voice, I always had a desire. I dreamed about becoming a social worker, but I went through so much that it made me feel like I don't have the competencies in order to be a social worker. I don't really have what it takes in order to be a speaker. I don't feel as though anyone would hear my raspy voice. However, as I shared today on Instagram, you have to get to a place where you understand that your story is significant. It has significance. You've gone through everything that you've gone through to produce substance so that you can share your significance with somebody else. Your significance, meaning your story. You have gone through everything that you've went through so that you could produce substance to share your significance with someone else, that they may also too find their understanding of the substance that their obstacles or their hardships is producing, to be that person to also share their significance with someone else, and really get into the place where I understood the value of my voice. Not just me speaking about various topics or giving my opinion, but also too going and doing the work, understanding where I needed additional understanding, and really pulling from individuals that had that knowledge in order to educate me so that I was informed when I would speak. And even when I speak now and I don't stand corrected, I don't mind someone correcting me to give me that moment to educate me so that I can be better. This is why we have a problem with building community, because we're not really empowering other people to let them know it does not matter that you don't have a college degree. It does not matter what background your family has or where you come from, but you are significant. Your story has produced, and the life events that you've gone through has produced substance that is significant, and somebody in the world needs to hear it. And to really tell community that your voice has value. Your voice has value. I do not care what you've heard in the past. Yes, I guess we could take that for a topic, Miss Kathy. She said, you are worthy. Your story matters. Yes, Candid Crucial Community Conversations get a twist of Wow Inspire. Yes, Wow Shay is Wow Inspire, and Wow Inspire is wisdom optimizes winning. So let me share this wisdom with you today. You are worthy, and your story does matter. So when you really get to a place in your life where where you can identify that I am worthy and my story does matter, it does not matter that I don't like what I look like on camera. That's why I got to be honest. I remember, you know, someone giving me a call and they saying to me, I want you to interview with the news. And I was on the news sharing my insight as it relates to the school board a couple of years ago. And I remember looking at the news and I was like, oh, I look a mess. And in that moment, God spoke to me and he said, it's not about what you look like. It's about what you're saying, the value in your voice and what you're saying. So I had to get over what I don't like about myself on a camera. I had to get over what I lack or my own self insecurities. And I had to stop speaking that doubt. I had to start seeing myself as, girl, you don't look bad at all on camera. Keep showing up. And I had to keep doing it in order to really get to a level where I was comfortable. And I got to tell you, I always say I never get comfortable because God always switches up on me. The minute I feel like, oh, I can do this, I'm riding this, I got the rhythm down pat, swoop, there comes a turn. There comes something to change and to alter my level of comfortability. So I just want you to know, yes, you are worthy. Your story matters. And just be mindful that the process of progression, it never seems like, oh, resolve is going to come. However, don't give up in the process. One of the things that I have to be honest, I have to tell you that even in these discussions, some week we may have 30 people watching, some week we might have 2 people watching. But one of the things that I have learned is lack of consistency causes people to lose their momentum. So even when I was just lounging around today and I'm like, we don't have a panel, so maybe I'll just postpone tonight's discussion. Nope, can't do that because consistency is everything. If the programming is every Monday at 7:30, I don't care if it's only one person watching. If no people are watching, speak what it is that you have to say, leave it up, and those that it's meant for, they will catch the replay and they will share it out and they will say, listen, Shay, I want to actually speak to this because I have something I need to share. And I want to speak to it publicly. I want people to hear my voice. I want someone to hear this broadcast and to say, you know what, if Shay could find the value in her voice, if she can identify the substance and the significance of all that she's gone through, I'm going to find mine as well. And I'm going to stay how I feel, and I'm going to do it unapologetically, and I'm going to be mindful of how what I feel can either invoke change or it could evoke continuous problems. So that's another thing. That's why I say we all have to use wisdom. Before I speak, I have a grace prayer that I say, and that prayer goes simple. It's very simple. Grace, God, I thank you for allowing grace to grow me. God, now I ask that grace would go before me. Meaning, before I open up my mouth, allow me to really be graceful in what I say. Allow me to consider where I once was. Allow me to understand that even in me expressing my opinion, me sharing my insight, that there are people that may be hurt by what I say, but let me speak it gracefully so that they know that I don't mean malintent by anything that I say, but I say it out of love. I say it because as a passionate person that's wanting to build community, that's wanting to see change, that's wanting to see us all win, us all thrive, sometimes passion comes off as, oh, that's harsh. But when you speak from a place of, you come and you speak from the passionate place that you possess, you have to pray that grace go before you. No, no's are not dead ends. Your voice is needed. This may be hard, but we must meet ourselves, walk through the doors because others are waiting to lift us and we in turn will lift others. That was a comment from Miss Kathy Hill. That is so good. No's are not dead ends. Just because somebody tell you no, a simple no sometimes just simply means not yet. So you keep on doing what it is that you are purposed to do. Know that we have to keep up these candid, crucial community conversations, because this is how we learn. This is how we build. This is how we understand one another. I can't understand for the life of me something that I have not experienced, but I can be empathetic and show understanding to really be understanding and to be mindful so that I can, when I am speaking, be mindful of my audience, be mindful of some of their situations. So I get offended when other people are offended at times. I do. I get offended, but at the same time, I had to learn that I cannot walk in offense, because sometimes what offends me is only designed to correct me, that may bring about change that will help me to be a stronger advocate, a stronger wife, a stronger mother, and a better person overall. So my husband says, you better not do that. That I will not. I will keep showing up. I appreciate him for all of his support. Miss Kathy also says, yes, be consistent. And why not? Because you are the content of what you value, what you pay attention to. Thank you, Shay, for your consistent carriage. Miss Kathy, I appreciate you for those kind words. I thank you for, being supportive. You show up. Every time I feel like I go live, you're on, you're listening, you're sharing, you're coming back and you're saying, that was very insightful. Thank you. So you are one of many that keeps me showing up on Mondays, on Wednesdays, on Saturdays, that keeps me going. So I really do appreciate it. So I just want you to know that the process of progression does not happen rapidly as many desires it to. There's a lot of other factors that we have to consider when we ask questions, when we share our opinions, when we share our insight. So I'm just excited about the process of change that's taken place even in this pandemic. I am grateful that you all have decided to lend me your last 36 minutes and counting this Monday morning. And no, we are going to be showing up every single Monday. I am going to be finding out about city council meeting, because I do understand that they're having city council meeting, whether it's pushing the time back for this every Monday or actually doing these conversations every other Monday. I'm actually going to put a poll on Facebook to hear back from you all. If you are interested in being a special guest speaker on this platform, please reach out to me. I could use your expertise and your knowledge. So reach out to me. You can do that on Facebook. For those that are watching on Instagram, not Instagram, I'm sorry. For those that are tuning in on YouTube, you can send me an email at shayspeaks1@gmail.com. shayspeaks1@gmail.com. And we will be in touch to schedule that broadcast. That's shayspeaks1@gmail.com. So as I say every single Monday, thank you all for showing up. Thank you all for sharing out this broadcast. Thank you all for continuously being supportive of all that God has me doing. And I want to hear from you, because again, this is not about me, but this is about us coming together to share our insight, to share our experiences. Just because you're no longer experiencing whatever the situation was now, it doesn't diminish that experience. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear your experiences. I want to hear what triggered you to be open to embracing every culture and being diverse in your efforts and your approach. And as I shared in previous broadcasts, I got to tell you, I was privileged to be in a conversation on diversity and to just talk about some of the inequities within our community, within businesses. And in that conversation, Um, the statement was made, and it gave a statement, and they just wanted feedback. Um, I don't see color. And many people had shared that's an offensive statement. And me, as courageous as I am, I had to say, wait a minute, let me hold, that's offensive to the African American community. And I had to transparently be open to share. I have made that statement. And I specifically have made that statement simply because I don't want to see, or really at that time, I did not want to embrace some of the cultural privileges. And I just wanted to see everyone equal. Like in my dreams, that's what it looks like. Everyone is equal. There is liberation for all people. So it was just insightful to be able to, number one, be able to sit in a conversation, and two, to allow my voice to be heard in that moment. And we have to be mindful, and I say this to the millennial generation. We have to be mindful. No, we may not have grew up in the 60s where schools were segregated, and some our ancestors were in slavery. They were enslaved, and those were not our personal experiences. However, it does not remove the history that it happened. So we have to be sensitive when we have those kinds of conversations, to understand that you have people living amongst us today that were living in an era during that time. And they still today see and acknowledge some of those cultural indifferences when it comes to society and in our community. And for us to just turn a deaf ear to it, or a blind eye to it, would be insensitive at the highest extent. So I just want to say, I say that to say that no one's person experience is going to be your experience, but just be mindful when you're listening. Be sensitive to their experience. Even though it was not your experience, or you may not have had those social interactions, just be mindful when you share in your comments or in conversation that you never know what triggers things that you could say that could trigger emotional pain or whatever. But at the same time, we must discuss it in order to really see unity come into our communities. We didn't have activists fight in order to see the moment in history where schools were desegregated and we were able to coexist. We didn't see that moment to only let that moment die. So we have to be mindful to keep paving the way, to keep making history, to keep building our community, to keep standing against the false narrative that we can't come together for the common good of anything, but we can do that when we are sensitive to one another's experience and we share in conversation to some of those crucial topics that we need to discuss. So that's all I have tonight. Until next Monday, I appreciate you all again for tuning in. I love you all, and I pray that this message not only empowered you, but inspired you. Tonight's message was intentionally to inspire and empower you to know that, one, your voice has value, and two, that your story is significant. It produced substance that is intended for you to share that significance with someone else. So have an amazing night, guys. Until next Monday, take care of yourselves. And remember, if you desire to be a featured speaker, to share some of your expert knowledge with us, please reach out to me so that I can put that on the calendar so that we can get you on. Again, that's shayspeaks1@gmail.com. Thank you all for tuning in, sharing out the broadcast, for just listening. For those that have commented, thank you for your engagement. For those that just say, I just want to hear what she's doing and what she's talking about, thank you for tuning in and listening as well. So have an amazing night, guys. Until next Monday, take care of yourselves and each other.